Hello viewers, December 6th, Friday, and we are again back with a new edition of our show where we are discussing the major conflict zones between the West and the new alliance which is now emerging between Russia, Iran, China and its allies. So we'll start again with our Syrian conflict. Last video we have kind of jotted down a history of the conflict where we discussed about the various players in this conflict and we told our audience that there are four major actors in this conflict. But before we kind of go into the weeds in this conflict, the news that is now emerging since last 24 hours is that the Syrian rebels, the so-called rebels, HTS group, Al-Qaeda affiliates, Al-Qaeda rebrand version HTS, Hayatul Tahrir al-Sham, has now captured another important city which is known as Hama in Sham. Hama is known to be the fourth largest city in Syria. Aleppo they have captured 2 days back, which is the largest city, the economic hub of Syria. And this is a major blow. It looks as if that the Syrian army, the Syrian Arab army, the army which is the official army of Assad's regime, is collapsing. Primarily because of the Russian distraction or Russian focus on Ukraine war. Russia, I think, is not able to help them out this time around. Not only Russia is not willing to help this time around, or even if they are willing to help, realistically speaking, they won't be able to provide them the assets. Iran also, because of its own political turmoil, its own economic turmoil, because of its own battles, entanglements with Israel, and the Lebanese resistance having suffered severe blows in southern Lebanon, where they have negotiated a ceasefire, have unable to come to help of their Syrian allies in this battleground. And therefore we are seeing the unraveling of the Syrian Arab army. Last time around in 2015 we have seen the assistance of Iran, assistance of Lebanese resistance, and most importantly the air cover, the air force, Russian assets provided were able to dislodge the offensive of the same militant groups, same Islamic groups, which has caused so much trouble last time around in Syria. And therefore we are seeing, I'm showing this in the map also, if you look at the two maps, comparison of the two maps from the left to the right, you can see rebels have initiated their offensive in the dark blue color. After reaching Aleppo yesterday, they have now reached the outskirts and maybe controlling Hama and other salients. It is reported that they are now going to attack another very strategically important city called Homs. Homs being at the juncture where the Lebanese resistance are being provided munitions, weapons through this axis of resistance through Iran. It is the closest city to port, where Syrian port lies, and it is also a very important commercial hub, being sitting on the strategically located highway called M5 in Syria. All these strategic aspects make Homs the next target of the rebels, making it an extremely precarious situation for the Assad regime. I think Vladimir Putin, the Iranian leadership are now getting goosebumps, the heat of the fall of these very strategically important locations in Syria. The head of this HTS group, which is known as Muhammad al-Julani, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, had now posted a video saying that basically congratulating their forces, and they have asserted that HTS has now taken revenge of a 40-year-old massacre which the Syrian Arab army led by Hafez al-Assad the father of the current leader of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, where he conducted a massacre in 1982. They are taking it as this victory as a revenge of a 40-year-old massacre. HTS, this militant group, Hayatul Tahrir al-Sham, who is the main actor in this new rebel offensive, his leader has basically posted a video on its social media platform. His name is Muhammad al-Julani, and he is celebrating this fall of Hama, or the taking of Hama from the Syrian Arab army, as a 40-year-old revenge. Hafiz al-Assad, the father of the current Syrian leader, Bashar al-Assad, who had carried out a massacre against the people of Hama, as he claims, Muhammad al-Julani claims, 40 years back in the city of Hama, has now been avenged. He said that the wound that has persisted in Syria for 40 years has now been healed. Today we entered it with tanks and are returning it to its people. Hafiz al-Assad entered Hama with tanks and dropped from its people. This is basically a kind of a big strategic boost for the Turkish interest in Syria, and also importantly the West interest in Syria. I think West is strategically, along with Israel, along with Turkey, has hit the Russian-backed interest, the Syrian interest, at its most weakest point. They found out there is an opening in Syria. The Syrian Arab army, because of the lack of Russian assets and because Iran being on back foot, Lebanese resistance on back foot, they have attacked right at the weakest location of this axis of resistance. And I think that this could create a significant blow to the interest of Iran and Russia in Middle East. So that is what I wanted to cover about it. This is a developing story. In a few days we might see a kind of taking back of these cities, or maybe an offensive gaining momentum, where the city of Homs is the next target, and we will keep you updated on this front. The second thing I wanted to cover about is the war which is now going on in Ukraine. By all accounts, even now the most passionate of the Ukrainian supporters, Kiev Post, Zelensky itself, New York Times, Washington Post, all are reporting that Russia is now consolidating its hold on Donetsk region, the most lucrative, the most productive, the most mineral-rich province of eastern Ukraine. Donetsk is now mostly under control of Russian armed forces. These southern strongholds of Ukrainian army, which has been fortified, which has been defended very, very courageously, I would say, by the Ukrainian forces, is now under severe pressure from almost three sides. There is a so-called pincer movements in two of the cities, Kharkov being one of them, and I am forgetting the name of the second city. All these two very important logistical hubs where the weapons and arms are transported to the front lines in Donetsk regions are now under pressure. It might collapse, might fall to the Russian forces. So with Russia kind of destroying the energy grid structure of Ukraine, it's reported that almost 60% of the grids, the substations and the energy infrastructure has now been taken out by the Russian attacks, Russian airstrikes, and also attacks on the substations of the nuclear power stations in Zaporozhye region. Russia basically it's making the life in the eastern Ukraine at least a hellhole, and that could create a major humanitarian and economic crisis for the Ukrainian state, for the Zelensky state. It looks as if the curtains is about to fall for the Zelensky regime, and they are desperate, especially desperate to start peace negotiations where Ukraine might have some bargaining power, in the upcoming days to negotiate an end to this conflict. The US, with its impending Donald Trump's presidency, is sending mixed signals. Donald Trump, for the last year or so, have been vocal in negotiating and starting to talk to Russians. However, all his aides, all his envoys to Ukraine, all his lieutenants are sending very different signals. They are the way they are talking, especially people like Keith Kellogg, who is the Russian Ukrainian envoy to the Donald Trump's presidency, Michael Waltz, the new national security advisor, Marco Rubio, the little Marco, all of them taking a very different line from Donald Trump. All of them using the same language that Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken has been using, the neocons line, saying that we need to basically fund Ukraine, we need to provide them weapons, munitions, so that they can increase their bargaining chip. With this kind of rhetoric, with this kind of language, I'm afraid, as John Mearsheimer had said just recently, that the decision or the result of this conflict would end up settling not on the negotiating table but on the conflict zone, the battle zone, which I'm afraid Russians are prevailing. So that is what I wanted to cover about Ukrainian conflict, directly linked to the Syrian conflict. People have been foresaging, people have been predicting the start of the Third World War. You see, if you look at the facts on the grounds, if you look at the battle scenes in Middle East, in Gaza, in West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria now, in Ukraine now, and also the tensions riling up in the South China Sea, one could even argue that we are in the Third World War. Although it's in a nascent stage, compare the conflicts in Iran, the rivalry or this tension between Iran and Israel, whole Middle Eastern region is now in flames, or is about to get into flames. There is tensions in China, South China Sea, in the Taiwanese Straits, and most importantly, there is a war which is now going on in eastern Ukraine for the last 2.5 years, with two nuclear armed states, two armed to the teeth nuclear states, Russia with extreme technology, with state-of-the-art technology and nuclear missiles, and NATO with its might, with its military might and economic might, are now loggerhead in Ukraine. Very dangerous situation for the whole world. I think, in my opinion, we are in the middle or in the start of the Third World War, because both parties are not willing to bow down, are not willing to cede to the pressures of the other side. So thank you so much.